The other side, we've got Ross Gordon with ARG Energy, and Ross has a very innovative practice of helping us analyze what opportunity we have within our homes, both new builds and existing homes, to improve the energy efficiency and upgrade to some of these technologies. So he does this incredible analysis that he'll tell us about to figure out where the opportunities are and what the cost benefit would be. And then in the middle, we've got Liam Bonser with Newbon Canada, and even on a more practical level, he actually makes this happen. In fact, he installed 55 solar panels on our roof, and we are now at a net zero situation, so we don't pay for electricity for the rest of our lives. And that's going quite far, because my wife and I run a bed and breakfast, and I have a small bit of control over the energy use practices of our family members, but I have absolutely no control over what the romantic getaway clients want to do in the middle of winter, sitting on the edge of the hot tub with the lid open because they're overheated, having cocktails and then having a big long shower. And I'm just thinking, wow, this is costing a fortune. So our electricity bills used to be enormous. I haven't paid for electricity since we got them installed. So we've got Liam here, and all three of these gentlemen would be happy to help you understand where the resources are, understand what the value proposition is for your own, what you can do, and help you, if you're interested, actually install some of these technologies. So welcome to our panel. So to start with, perhaps in whatever order you would like to go in, do you have any reactions that you want to share to what Bill said? Go ahead, Gerry.
Yes, absolutely. He is so right to concentrate on what we can do. There's so much bad news out there. You're just going to get depressed if you get on Facebook or listen to the news. You don't have to. There's stuff we can do right now. And around here, it's not that windy. It's not that windy, but for sure we have plenty of sun. We have way more sun than Germany, and they've done super well getting solar going. We can be net zero. I've been net zero since 2014, except for this year because I finally got rid of. I had a second building that was heated with gas, and finally I had enough resources I could get rid of that and go to a heat pump. So I had to pay $1,000 extra this year on my hydro because I got totally rid of all the GHGs in my house, which is great on our property. So that feels really good. You can do it too. In 2014, when I put my system in, I'm a geek. It was the first time you could put solar on and not lose money. That was when BC Hydro brought in their net metering system, and I paid a whole lot for it so that it'll never pay off, but I didn't lose any money either. So that felt good. It was sort of going the right direction. You guys are super lucky if you're wanting to do it now, because now there's a heck of a good payback, especially right now because BC Hydro has rebates for batteries and solar. So you can put on a system roughly the size of mine and get like $5,000 or $10,000 back. Plus it's way cheaper. So why not do it? BC Hydro, well actually our government is busy giving away all of our wonderful electricity to people who want to compress natural gas and ship it all over the world, which is ridiculous. Again, that's politics. I do what I can, but I don't have a lot of hope that it's going to make that much difference. But I can make sure that our province doesn't run out of electricity just by putting stuff on our roof. You don't have to have giant fields of solar panels. Just putting stuff on the roofs around here would make an enormous difference. Every house that has sun pretty much can make all that electricity it needs. So that's my lesson. It's time to do it. It's easy to do it. It actually saves you money. And at the moment, you will make more money putting in solar than you would if you bought a 25-year Canada Savings Bond. And the system is guaranteed 25 years, so it's kind of comparable. So if you're thinking about retiring and where do I put my money, stocks, bonds, stock market crashes, what do I do? You can buy your lifetime electricity and essentially earn better than if you put it in a 25-year bond.
Thanks, Gerry.
Who's next?
Makes sense.
Okay.
Thanks, Gerry. That's a big thing to follow. So, so back to Dave's question about my reaction to the video. Yes, I agree in terms of, even I'm seeing it myself in the last few years, just that now that we're at this tipping point of how much solar and renewable energy is accelerating. One thing that he mentioned that if he wasn't going to mention, I was going to mention, is about how Texas has the most renewable energy in the States. And I've spent a decent amount of time down there. The scale of the wind farms and the solar farms that they have there in certain areas, because of how flat and big it is, would blow your mind. It's absolutely insane. Not only that, most of my time I've spent in Houston, which is, not only is Texas the oil capital of the US, but Houston itself is the oil capital of Texas. I don't know for anybody that's been there, but the size of the refineries and the scale of the oil business they have there makes Calgary and Edmonton, those places, look like babies, like nothing compared to this. And the amount of solar that you see on people's roofs in Texas, specifically in Houston, is really, really impressive. The other, to follow up on what Gerry says, he made a lot of good points too, but one thing I'd like to start by pointing out is, not only if you put solar on your roof, a lot of people that are older will say, well, I want to do it, but I'm not going to do it because I'm only going to be in my house for 5 to 10 years and then I'm going to sell it and I'm not going to get any money back, so it doesn't make sense. Well, they've actually done a bunch of studies, including some in California and some even in Canada, and they said, okay, if you put solar on your roof, when you go to sell your house, people like that. So how much of the dollar that you put in do you get in dollar back when you go to sell? What they found is you'll get somewhere between $1.10 and $1.40 on average back for however much you spent on the solar system. So even if you're only in your house for 5 years, you're definitely going to get that money back when you go to sell it.
So thanks everybody for being here, because it speaks to I really think it speaks to the sense of optimism that we're hearing both in the video and here, that we can do small things and make a difference. And we can start at the easiest way to do small things is to start at home. And that's what we're talking about. A client of mine, I was doing an existing home evaluation a few months ago, and the fellow was a kind of a financer type occupation, and he said to me, this is this really smart thing to do, to take the infrastructure of our energy systems and put it in small bits all over the country. So even just thinking about it from a sort of macro scale, turning it into small little pods is a more sustainable and more resilient system as well. I'll not spend too much time on solar because we've got all the experts here, but I will, when we get there, I'll talk a little bit about some of the structural things you can do with your house to make it, in the design of it, whether you're building a new one or retrofitting an existing one, how you can make it just use less energy. And again, much like Gerry said, investing money in a sustainable return, because as the slide will come to later, the best way to save energy is just don't use it. So we'll get into some of the structural things, because a lot of times people get focused on incentive programs and so forth that are designed, where they get focused on the mechanical upgrades, but thinking about the structure of the dwelling and how it can actually just use less energy lowers the demand as well. So I'll leave it there until we get to the next round, I guess.
Thank you very much, folks. Well, we really appreciate your being here, and you have helped so many families and so many businesses upgrade their energy use and conservation. But maybe let's continue with you, Ross, because I know that you've prepared some slides here. And Ross is the perfect person to kind of launch into this, because he starts at the, okay, where are the opportunities? What's your house like? And goes from there, because the opportunity isn't the same for every house. Some houses don't really use that much electricity, so there's not really that much same. Some don't have the heating space on the roof for solar panels. Some are very leaky and some aren't. So Ross, maybe you can tell us what you do to help people through that question.
So I essentially work as a consultant. I don't sell anything, and I don't install anything, but I help people plan and help people understand how their house functions as a system. So I put a few slides together just to make sure it's a little cohesive. Sure it was cohesive, and there we go. So as a Natural Resources Canada licensed energy advisor, there's a standardized method for evaluating homes called an EnerGuide evaluation, which is sort of the starting point to understand how a house functions. And what I do is I go to a house, if it's an existing home, I go to a house and basically measure everything. All the components of the house, what I'll refer to as the house envelope, which means the walls, the windows, the ceilings, the foundations, everything that makes up the exterior surface of the home, and measuring all the bits and estimating what's the insulative value or properties of every window and every wall and ceiling and so forth. And that all goes into some energy modeling software, and it comes out with some estimates. So for example, here's a house that I'm going to use as an example, anonymously, of course, that I was in a few weeks ago. It's a 2-story coastal home that's about 3,000 square feet. And so all of the data that I gather and put together comes out with there's many outputs, but the sort of macro one is that this house is estimated to be using 147 gigajoules of energy a year. It's a 1991 house. There was no air barrier. We'll talk about that in a minute. So, and the house is very leaky in terms of, I'll talk about air tightness in a minute as well. So basically there's a lot of small holes everywhere in the house, exterior, which I determined using it's called a blower door test, where I put a fan and take air out of the house and measure how fast it comes in again. But for a point of reference, you can see over there that 147 gigajoules a year is the equivalent of 294 barbecue tanks of propane, just as a point of reference. Average house in Canada is probably about, of this kind of size, 2,500 square feet, probably uses about 100 gigajoules. And coming back to Liam's point about the passing the value of a home on after doing upgrades, the EnerGuide evaluation, actually the label's supposed to stay with the house. It doesn't belong to the people. So when you sell a house, and I'll show you one that's quite a bit better later, that's a way that somebody buying a house can look at the house and say, okay, this is the estimate of how much energy this house uses, rather than going through electrical bills and all that sort of stuff. So in any case, key points for this slide then takeaway is that's a whole lot of energy, not an efficient house whatsoever. Client's very interested in fixing it up, and we just had a long call yesterday on how to figure some of those things out. And then you can just have a quick look at this little chart down here. This breaks down, because I'm taking the mechanical specifications on the equipment as well, and 73% of the energy here is going to just space heating. And so that's a lot, as you'll see as we go through. So,
how many tanks is that one in the picture?
well, I used an AI generator, and I asked it for 200, but I didn't count them, sorry.
That's AI's guess of what 200 tanks.
Exactly, yeah, it was a pretty good picture, I thought. And it took 7 seconds.
Hell of a barbecue.
A very big barbecue, a lot of fans. Okay, so what I had to do is just because I didn't want to overlap too much with the other two fellows, is just help explain a little bit about how, at a very basic level, how a house envelope gets put together. Because that's what I do when I go to measure it. And I work a lot with, more and more now, with new builders, because they have to meet a certain standard of energy efficiency in the house. So I do take all the plans and figure out all these pieces and make, and the insulator properties and so forth. So here's just a basic drawing. In any house, in a situation like this, basically you've got a constant flow of cold air coming in at the bottom, and it's rising up in the house. People in the house, taking showers, cooking, whatever you're doing, the dog is creating, and heating systems is creating warmth, and then the hot air is working its way up and out. So you have a constant flow of air in and out. Now, in older homes, they're without any mechanical systems for controlling the air moving in and out. It just comes in everywhere. So you've got soil gas coming in, you've got the air coming from places you don't necessarily want to. This is called stack effect. And the higher the house, the more stories, the faster it goes, because it sort of accelerates as the heat keeps going up. That's the basic thing to understand about how air and temperature move, and moisture, which we'll come to as well, move through the house. So if you have no insulation in your house like this, you've got practically a wind happening with cold air coming in from wherever down below and working its way up and out. So as we start to look at insulating, and I'm going to start at the bottom and work up, just to show essentially how a house or a home of any sort should have sort of a blanket around it. But the blanket needs to be cohesive, and the pieces need to be stitched together carefully. Think about if somebody gave you a blanket with a bunch of holes in it, and you put it on, it wouldn't work very well. So here we start at the bottom, and this is basically, I'm just doing a little bit of structural bits at a very macro level to help you understand what makes up that blanket. So this here is what's called under slab insulation, and almost all new homes now put some kind of foam board stock underneath the slab, and that reduces the amount of cold air and coldness coming through the floor. So that's kind of a starting point, and then you can go further. And because I use this modeling software that gives you, each time you make a change, it gives you pretty good detail. So I often with new builders have to talk them into spending an extra $500 or something to put a little skirt around the outside. And it's remarkable actually when it goes into the modeling software, putting some insulative value right against that footing makes a difference. So here we've got the under slab insulation, and now we're starting to put a little bit around the footing as well. And it's all incrementally reducing the amount of moisture, air, and coldness that's coming into the house. So, and I won't get too geeky here, just this at a pretty macro level. But you can, I want you to see that as we're sort of dressing the house in this blanket, if you will. Now we've covered all the footing here, and now we've done something else as well. We've put insulation between the soil and the concrete wall at the bottom, and this diagram actually has it. This is called exterior insulation, so it's going all the way up the wall in this case with the siding on the outside. So gradually now you can see we're reducing the opportunities for air and water and coldness to come into the house. And then we go one step further over here and we put insulation on the inside of the walls. And that makes a big difference now too, because now we're going to be retaining that heat that much more effectively. So moving right along as we go up. And then we go a little farther. So here we've got often what you have, you may not know this, but if you have concrete walls in your foundation in your basement, and there's drywall there, you probably have 2x4 framing with batt insulation between the frames that's creating that insulative barrier. And this is I apologize if it's talking about insulation is not as nearly as inspiring about changing the world, but it's these little macro steps that make up the opportunity to do that. So here we've gone to add the insulation here, and then there's other ways to, the term I want I'm going to give you a couple of key terms. Thermal bridging means that if you buy insulation in a package and it says R20 on it, let's say, just again, don't have to know the details, our value is the resistance to heat loss. So when you put it between wooden frames, you don't have insulation where the wood is. So you might put R20 insulation in, but the wood's only R4 or R5. And that's called thermal bridging because you've got bridges between the insulation. So if you put the R20 in, once I do the math with my software, maybe you're only going to get about R16 or R17 because it has to account for the wood in between. So there's ways actually to get around that, and sometimes you can even put what's called a double stud wall, where you put two walls together, two 2x4 walls together, and you put the studs in different places, and then you don't have a continuous thermal bridge. And you can take one of those frames and put all your wires and pipes and things in it, which also create thermal bridging, and have the other one with nothing in it, which makes it that much better. So these are just real macro. You can do 1 week courses on what I'm covering here right now. This is a real surface, but just to give you some ideas of what's possible. And I've got ahead of myself a little bit here, but the two terms that are important to remember here are nominal R value. When you go to the hardware store and you see a package of insulation that says R20, that's the nominal value if it was put down continuously across the surface. Once you start putting it between bridges or other things, then you get the effect of R value, which is what you actually get. And when I do my modeling and my analysis, that's what I'm sorting out, because that can change a lot. This is a very simple house. It's a box shape. If you put about 10 or 11 corners on this house, or intersections, you've got wood in every one of those corners. And the effective insulation value goes down a lot. So simple lines help a lot as well. And then there's something called ICF that I mentioned here as well. That's a wall structure that has foam, and they pour on both sides, and they pour concrete in the middle. You'll see people using that more as well. And that has also some value. So again, just really top-down stuff, but what I find is most people don't have a sense of, if I talk to people about these things without pictures, it's because there's so many acronyms, and what's an ICF? International Control System of, who knows? There's so many terminology points, so that my message as we move into the final stages here is it's really important to think about how to save energy, and how to use the sun, and how to use heating systems like heat pumps and so forth. But the starting point in passive house design, this is the mantra: envelope first. Make the envelope as good as you possibly can. You reduce the requirements of the systems that you're buying, lowering the cost. And then just work our way up to explain one other important concept that I find people very frequently don't understand. Why is my attic cold? I used to wonder this too. Attics are supposed to be cold. So what happens is you put insulation here. Again, we're trying to prevent the heat all just moving right up out of the house for a bunch of reasons. The way your attic should work is you've got what's called soffits here, which are little holes, and there should be a constant flow of air up through the soffits and up and out through the vents. And you want that. Why? Because it's not just moving air through the house that's a problem. Moisture's always moving with the air. And in terms of damage to houses and problems, most of them are caused by moisture. So if you don't have good air movement out of the attic, and the warm air comes out of the house and goes into the attic, what happens? Condensation, or even attic rain. Actually, there's an actual term for it. The wood all rots, the insulation gets wet, everything really bad. So again, just understanding some of these basic concepts. And then, so this way, in an ideal attic, you have a lot of quite thick insulation piled up here, and then you've got this constant airflow. That's any moisture that does get through there gets sucked out by that cold air that's moving. And then the cathedral ceiling, just for reference, essentially the same idea, just looks a little different. Okay, so to wrap, now that I've geeked you to death on insulation, believe me, a 1-week course is really different. There are so many types of walls and so forth. Okay, so here's another house from another client, a similar sized house I chose for reference. The older house was built in 1991. This one's 2008. A really big change happened between then, during that interval, is contractors started paying attention to putting air barriers in, so it's not just the insulation you're putting in, but putting a tight, in most cases people are putting plastic, and it's sealed very carefully with caulking and so forth all the way around, so that the air is restricted in exiting the house and not just moving right through the insulation, and dropping moisture with it in those walls. So this house had a good air barrier, and when I ran a blower door test, which basically I put a fan on the door, I suck air out of the house, and then I have a fancy gauge that measures the pressure differential between the inside and the outside, and through taking a series of readings at different speeds and so forth, I can determine how fast the air is coming back into the house to replace what I'm sucking out. So that's called air changes per hour, another acronym, ACH. There'll be a test on at the end. But in any case, the point is it measures how leaky the house is. So the first house I showed you had an air change per hour of 8 point something or other, because there was no air barrier. When I put the fan on here, it's just, we went around and tested. I have little tools to test, and it's just coming here and there and everywhere. Whereas this house was very well built with a tight air barrier from the get-go. Now, so they started off way up here somewhere, and they put solar panels on, and they've got quite a good heat pump system, and they've got an air barrier, and this is the projection for their use. And again, for this footprint, this typical new house using the same footprint, the software estimated about that much. So a combination of these features, that the mechanical systems to capture energy, to use it efficiently, and then designing the envelope. And now look here, space heating is now 25%, because we're not heating the great outdoors anymore to the same degree as we were with the other house. Why? Because we have a tight house envelope, so the need is much less. To achieve this result without having the tight envelope, we would need 3 times the solar system, the solar panel system, to generate the energy required. So by reducing the demand, we keep a good balance. And as we can see here, we use roughly this many barbecue tanks instead of however many. There's a draw at the end if you can count them really fast before we're done. So that's, I think, pretty much. So just to wrap, idea-wise then, control the inflows, control how air and moisture get into the home, control how it leaves. I don't have time to get into details, but there's heat recovery ventilator systems, which draw our mechanical systems to, as your house gets tighter, and you use that to control how the air comes in and out of the house at a balanced level. You can reduce the size and operating costs of your heating and ventilating systems dramatically by having a tight house. We're trying to, for the house I showed you in the beginning, we're trying to figure out how big of a heating system we're going to need, and we're calculating what kind of envelope upgrades we're going to do, and then figure out how to balance all that out. Because if he just ran out and bought a heat pump today, it would be 3 times what he's going to actually need once we figure it all out. And then, of course, improving the air quality and the health and so forth. So, and lastly, just to touch on the rebate, there's a really interesting change that's happened in my business over the last couple of years. There was several rebate programs going in the Greener Homes program that were driving a lot of interest in upgrades. But many of the people using the systems were very focused on a single item, like getting a heat pump, for example. There's tens of thousands of heat pumps installed into the programs. The rebate programs are less, there's less of them and there's less money now. But it's interesting that my clients, I'm not doing that much less business, but they're actually thinking more cohesively of the house. So I was doing all this work for a lot of people, and then you go back and I go around and take 40 pictures of everywhere the air leaked in the house, and say, did you do any of those things? No, we're just getting the heat pump and we're gonna go. And it was a little discouraging in a way because you spend a lot of time. But now people are actually really thinking about the whole system more. In any case, rebates that are out there now, just for, Dave asked me to just touch on this, Clean BC, the federal Greener Homes program is finished, and there's no sign of it coming back. We don't think it's going to be there, so that's over. Clean BC and BC Hydro and Fortis BC collaborate on some provincial rebate programs. Some are funded by different agencies, but you can use the Clean BC site as a starting point for most of them. There's the important thing I just want to, I get questions on all the time. There's two silos, if you will, of Clean BC / utility company rebate programs. One's called the Energy Saving Rebate Program. It was rolled out about a year and a half ago, or two almost now, to work with income restrictions and house value restrictions, because there was a lot of criticism that people couldn't bridge a lot of people couldn't bridge the funds to put equipment in or make changes and then wait to get paid. This program pays the contractors directly, but you have to qualify for it, pre-qualify for it with your income and your house value and get a registration number. It's the most generous rebate program that's out there right now. But the website can be a little confusing because it's done in silos, and if you get into this one, you can't find your way to the other one sometimes. So my advice is look at the energy savings program, see if you qualify. If you don't, forget about it. And then go to the home renovation rebate program, which is open to anybody that, for primary residents in the house. And the one rebate I'm seeing quite a bit of use on is there's a $4,000 rebate if you're for heat pumps if you're upgrading from a primary electric heating system. And the other thing, last thing to mention with this program, if you do three things, because they're trying to encourage this cohesive approach, you can get $2,000 extra just for doing three things that qualify. So improving your air changes per hour by a certain percentage is one of those. So that helps as well. So that's my story, and I'll be around if you have any questions. And thank you for your patience with a fascinating talk about the inside of your house.
Well, I'd like to say that that was the end of our geekiness, but we're going to take it up a notch now. I want Liam to talk a little bit about what you're seeing, because he's actually on people's roofs and in people's basements on a daily basis, upgrading their roofs with solar panels and heat pumps and their electrical systems to support it all. So maybe, Liam, can you talk a little bit about what are we seeing in terms of changes, and what are your customers telling you in terms of their experience with these systems?
Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Ross, for that great presentation. So just give a little bit more background on myself. I'm a master electrician as well as the owner of Newbond, which is a solar and electrical business here on the Sunshine Coast. Total, from my previous employer, from learning about it, supervising, and now installations with my own business, I've done about 115 solar installations, give or take one or two. I was actually even finishing one this morning before coming here. I lost count quite a while ago, but if you had to do an actual number of panels that have passed through my hands that I've put on the roof, it's probably in the 3,000 range, plus or minus a few as well. I've been doing in the space for 8 years now, coming up on 8 years in May. Some of the changes that I've seen are, when I first started doing this, there was a big, not as much as when Gerry put his panels on the roof, but there still was a price premium for going solar, and the economics were a lot more difficult to justify. I saw through how much not only did the efficiency and the actual wattage of the panels and equipment improve, but also how much the price came down. For example, when I first started, we were putting on solar panels that were about 250 watts, 260 watts each. Now we're doing 500, now a lot of them are 500 watts, sometimes even more for ones that were put on. So the fact that they've doubled in wattage in that time, and not only that, but the price per unit, even after inflation, is less than was when I first started. One really nice thing that's happened in the last few years is when BC Hydro, here, hang on.
That's an energy saver.
Someone just came in and wanted to see Daddy. So, Here. Hang on. There we go.
Like putting things on roofs, clearly.
Yeah. Where was I? Yes, exactly. The rebate, yes. So one very exciting thing that we got in the last year, about year and a half, coming up on 2 years now, is there is now rebates from BC Hydro for doing solar panel and battery installations. There's a $5,000 rebate for solar for residential, as well as $5,000 for batteries, and for commercial you can get $10,000 for solar and $10,000 towards batteries. The nice thing is, even though it doesn't cover the cost of the whole system, I really noticed that there was a lot of people that were, on the fence. Oh, maybe I'll do this. Were thinking about it. That was the nudge that they needed to push them over the edge. So that was very exciting to see. Another exciting thing that we have coming up, which we don't know all the details yet, but BC Hydro is changing how they're doing the payback for solar systems that are coming up. So instead of building up an energy credit like you used to do in the past, new systems going forward, they will pay you at a fixed dollar value of 10 cents per kilowatt hour for power that you sell back, which is slightly less good from a payback perspective as the old system. But one thing that they are bringing in, which we're very excited about, is which we haven't seen before, is that they are going to be allowing for virtual net metering. So other places have already allowed this, and what virtual net metering is if it's really good for people that, let's say you live in an apartment and you have a high bill from BC Hydro, but you don't have a roof, you can just put solar panels on. So what am I going to do in order to offset my hydro usage and benefit from solar? So now what they're going to do is, with the virtual net metering, did you want here? You want to be held there? There we go. I got it. Thank you. What they'll do now with the virtual net metering is let's say you have an apartment building, and what you'll say is there's a certain limit. You'll say, what I'd like to do is buy 15 solar panels and have them put in somewhere else. We'll put it in with a bunch of other people, so a bunch of people can get together as a co-op or through a business or something like that. They'll put in 100 solar panels in somewhere. It could be on a building or even on the ground somewhere else in BC. You own a certain percentage of that solar array, and the amount of electricity that it produces gets credited to your account. So that's something very exciting that we're looking forward to. The other thing, there's a few things that I really like about solar, which is, here, there we go. There we go. Is that better? Is that better? Yeah. One of the nice things is everybody has a roof, which is a great asset to have, but all that it's doing is protecting your house from the rain. The fact that you can take that and actually take it up to the next level by adding solar and using it something that's income generating and money saving for your house is a great. It's just a fantastic thing. The other thing I like too, this is from a personal satisfaction perspective, but a lot of electrical gets hidden, but I feel like I'm almost like an artist because I'll show up, everybody's roof is a little bit different, and then you'll say, okay, what can we do here to make a great system that will work for the customer, save them money on their electrical bill, look good, and then everybody's really excited about it, so it's a lot of fun. The other nice thing too is no matter how much you try, you're never going to be refining your own oil or digging up your own natural gas at your house. So whatever you get charged, you're stuck with. So you go by even for me, because I have one hybrid and an older pickup, but definitely looking at going a full EV soon. But it's like even now, when you go fill up the pump, minus the environmental side, just the side hitting your wallet based on what somebody else decided to do to some other part of the world, and suddenly your fuel costs have gone way up. And there's nothing you can do about it, except if you get yourself an EV, you can say, my electricity bill went up. Well, I'll just put on some extra solar panels. You can generate it in your own yard. So and you have that control is really nice as well. Coming up, there's a few other exciting things that I'm working on. So one of the things that's holding battery installations back here in BC is the cost. They're still quite expensive to put in. One of the reasons is not the cost of the battery so much, but in order for your house to be backed up during a power outage, I have to set it up in such a way that when the power goes out, your house will switch to just running the batteries. It's called islanding. So you become your own electrical system. You don't feed back BC Hydro and cause potentially harm to linemen or whoever are working on the lines and the hydro equipment. One downside is there's a lot of work, both from some equipment I have to put in, but also from time to be able to intercept your electrical feed from BC Hydro to your main electrical panel. So in a lot of jurisdictions, what they're doing, and there's a bunch of companies that have products that will do this, there's Tesla, there's Enphase, there's a bunch of other ones. Instead of having to put all of that equipment in, there's a special device that goes between your BC Hydro meter and your and the meter socket, which is where your hydro meter plugs in. Everybody has one of those. So I'm actually working with some people at BC Hydro trying to encourage them, because BC Hydro is generally very slow at adopting new technologies and new ways of doing things. Even though there's, like in the States, for example, a lot of these are approved at like things like Xcel Energy and like Florida Power and Light, and these large players in the space have already approved this technology. So instead of it taking a few days to install your battery system, we could do it in a morning. All that happens is BC Hydro comes in, they take your meter out, we put this thing in between your meter and the meter base on your house, your batteries and your solar feed into that, and that acts as your transfer switch. So once those are approved for use here in BC, that will definitely reduce the costs of the battery system quite a bit, and will definitely lead to an uptake in installations. So in terms of solar, prices are still coming down somewhat, and we're looking for new technologies to increase the efficiency of the panels. Currently, panels are around 25% efficient. The reason for that is because they only are able to capture part of the light spectrum. So they capture kind of the blue, green, and purple part of the light spectrum, but can't capture the rest of it. So there's a bunch of different technologies looking at, oh, maybe we can use organic materials or different things and we can get 80, 90% efficient for solar collection, which all sound really good, but I have a little bit of manufacturing experience as well, so I really understand how hard it is to go from, oh, it works in the lab, to, oh, I made one, to, oh, I can make a lot of them, to, oh, I can make a lot of them at a decent price point. So the real exciting area now is the battery side in terms of what we have coming up. There's so many different some new chemistries, and as there's more and more players entering, the price of the batteries particularly is falling a lot. So what we're doing now is a lot of people are just choosing to put solar in, and then just using without the battery, you just use BC Hydro as your battery, sell to them when you have extra buyback when there's not enough. But a lot of these systems is later, if we come in and put the batteries in, it's not a waste to put the solar in now. They're almost two separate projects. So a lot of people will say to me, oh, I want to do solar and batteries. And if they say, oh, well, the batteries are way too expensive, maybe I won't bother. Say, well, I would recommend you do the solar, at least do the solar for now. And then the batteries we can add later when the economics make more sense. And even for some people, like if you live way at the end of some road here on the Sunshine Coast, and when the power goes out, it's out for 3 days. Well, I have power. The power at my house will stay on for longer. Is more of an incentive than if you live right beside the substation in Gibsons, and you're always the first one back online after a power outage.
Thanks, Liam and son.
Yeah, this is Elijah.
That was my favorite thing, watching you do that talk.
Staggering parenting.
So electrifying.
There we go.
It's a family affair.
Yes, it is.
So I wanted to give you, Gerry, a little bit of time. I'm sure there's a whole lot of people trying to figure out if this makes dollars and cents sense. And how do you go about figuring out like the payback period for this? How much do you have to put in compared to how long it takes you to pay it off?
I don't know that answer.
He's leaving.
Yeah, he's got all the charts at the back.
Okay. I was ready for just about any question. So this question, the average house in BC, if you go on BC Hydro, they actually have a thing that says that the typical Lower Mainland house uses so many kilowatt hours, 15,350 kilowatt hours a year. That's how much the average house uses, the detached house, not apartments. And if you have 550 watt panels, which are the ones that are pretty cost effective right now, then you need 24 of them to make that much power in Gibson's Roberts Creek Seashell, as long as you don't have any shade. So if you have shade and you lose 20%, then you need 20% more panels. But that's the concept. So 24 panels, it's really not a lot. And that will generate enough energy, and that's roughly how much it costs, 28,000. There's the typical price of installing it. Now this is from last year. I expect it's probably lower this year. And basically, if you get a rebate, it's even less, right? If you get that $5,000 rebate, it's starting to look pretty reasonable. And then what we're talking about is about 8 years without a rebate. And if you get a rebate, I haven't got a calculation, but it would be maybe 6 or 7. Now, the only problem with this is, like Liam said, BC Hydro is changing how they bill. This is based on the net metering, which basically every penny, every kilowatt you save just means your bill goes lower. The new system, they will give you 10 cents, but if you're using the power at night, they will charge you 14 cents. Or so like at peak time. If you use your power in the middle of the night when it's much lower, what's
5.5.
5.5? Yeah. Then generating 10 cents during the day and putting your car to charge at night and so on, you can actually make money. So depending on how you can time shift, it can be better. All of the studies BC Hydro has done say that typically under the new net billing system, it'll increase that by 1 or 2 years on the payback. So the typical person, because of the way they use their energy, you know, they make supper when they get home, the power goes on anyway. The net effect is that we'll have slightly worse payback. But payback is only part of it. The fact that even the new one, you know, you've got, like, there aren't a lot of things you can do in your home that will give you an 8-year payback. Almost everything that like, if you're a business and you can write stuff off, they try to make sure it's on 2 or 3 year payback. But for homeowners, we don't have much of that. We can't write stuff off. So an 8-year payback is pretty good. And like I said, it's better than a 25-year bond right now. 25-year bond is more than an 8-year doubling. So it's worth doing. And I wanted to reinforce the battery thing. I put batteries in just a few years ago, and I'm in the Roberts Creek area, right on the border between Elphinstone and Roberts Creek. Last year we had 13 power outages. One of them lasted 32 hours. We never even noticed that the power was out. Except every once in a while you look at, you know, if it's nighttime, it's all dark everywhere.
Yeah.
But we've been, you know, watching TV or working on our computer, our lights, our power, everything's working. And that's so cool. I mean, it's really, really, and now that this is coming in, and BC Hydro has got, like, we all used to be on the two-tier system, the base rate and then the tier 2. Now you have the option of going to time of use pricing, which allows you to, you know, shift your energy use. But it also means if you have batteries, you can charge your batteries during the day, use them at peak time so that you aren't getting charged for expensive power, and then feed it back, well, actually, ideally consume it to use it when it's expensive. So that, you know, if you can manage that, you can actually improve what you're doing. So I guess that's really all I wanted to say is it's wonderful to be your own power company. I've been running my car since 2018. I have not had any fuel costs, just because I put those 6 panels on back in 2014.
Thanks, Gerry. So how about we open it up for questions from the floor? Go ahead.
I have a question. Do solar panels and lithium batteries have a longevity? And if so, what is it?
Yes. Well, the panels, almost all of the panels are guaranteed for 20. Almost all the panels are guaranteed for 25 years. Most of the panels that are out there, you know, are 30, 40 years. They're still going. What happens is their output slowly drops about 0.5% per year. So at the end of 25 years, your guarantee says it will make at least 80% of what the nameplate was, what it made when it was new. So even at 40 years, you know, you might be making 75% of what it was when it was new, but it'd still be producing.
What about batteries?
Batteries, typically 7 to 10 years is what they say, depending on how many times you charge and discharge. But the newer ones last longer. You know, there are many Tesla batteries, for instance, that are 13, 14 years old now and still going.
If they're not exploding and burning the car.
That is such weird news. A Tesla car burning makes the news. Like, there are less than 1% of electric cars have a fire compared to fuel cars.
Or the lithium battery in your laptop and the overhead storage of the airline.
Yes, so there were problems. Now,
We'll get to
one
this.
of the big things that has changed is they have gone from the lithium, cobalt, nickel version, which is what those all were. It's called lithium ion. Those were the ones that if they're damaged or if they're overloaded, they can overheat to the point where they actually self-combust. The new technology is using lithium, iron, and phosphate. So they're a little bit heavier. They don't have quite the storage density, but they will not self-ignite. The only way you can burn them is if you have a fire that lights them on fire. Either way, you're infinitely safer than being in a fossil-fueled car.
Excellent.
Anyone else have a question for the panel? Yes.
So how do I get started? Who do I go to first?
Well, I guess it probably depends on what your situation is, but Ross does the analysis of where the opportunities are in your house. And Liam, if you conclude that solar panels are something that you need, or a heat pump is something that you need, he provides that. And Gerry runs the association that provides all the resources for all of these industries. So it really depends on where you're at. If you want education, you probably go to Gerry. If you want analysis, you probably go to Ross. And if you want physical infrastructure, you probably go to Liam. So anything else to add over there?
They've had their sales pitch. I'd like to make my sales pitch. We're looking for members. It's $20 a year. There's a little sign-up sheet at the back. If you join us, that'd be great. For our members, we have a lot of resources, and we actually hire a summer student. So often our members will say, "Hey, come and check my house out. Is it good for solar?" And we'll come and do a little report and tell you, how much shade and whatever is going on, give you that report. Then what you can do is take that and go to your 3 favorite electricians and say, please give me a quote for this. And that way, make sure you have him come and do a quote for you. Yeah, but I've noticed that electricians can get very busy, and the prices they quote for the same job can be vastly different. So that's probably the same thing for anything you do. Get 3 quotes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I live in a townhouse that is stratified, right, and it's a row house, and I'm just wondering and we're all separately metered by hydro, so does the whole row have to go, solar and check all the building envelope and everything, and the heat pump? How does that actually work?
So from a solar perspective, for strata, if you own your own roof, sometimes you'll have to get permission from the strata, depending on if you're like townhouses side by side or if it's buildings. If you own your own roof, usually with permission from the strata, you can just put solar on because it'll feed into your electrical panel in your unit. You're the one getting the credits regardless of what your neighbors decide to do. If it's more of like a strata situation where you're different levels and the roof is purely common area, that's something where this new BC Hydro virtual net metering, where you can basically buy solar panels that are at a different location and get the energy from those, that will then be applied just to your hydro meter, regardless of whether your neighbors choose to participate in that program or not.
Great. And about the heat pump, I don't really know what that technology is, so.
Very, very briefly, what a heat pump does is that it moves a refrigerant from an outside coil to an inside coil, and fans blow across coils on each level, and it can provide heating in the cold season and cooling in the hot season. And it's to give you a very quick reference, if you buy 1 gigajoule, you don't even need to know what a gigajoule is, but if you buy 1 gigajoule of energy and put it into a baseboard heater, you'll get 1 out. Because there's no combustion, there's no loss, 100%. If you buy a new heat pump today, you put 1 gigajoule into it, you get about 3.5 out. Because it actually creates energy moving the refrigerant back and forth by compressing it and expanding it and so forth. So 2 big upgrades that you get One is much more efficient use of the dollar that you're putting in, and also you get cooling. If you just have a baseboard heater, as a comparison, you don't have cooling in the summer, so you would get cooling built in much more cost efficiently than if you bought an air conditioner, which wouldn't give you that rate of return.
Right, and that,
So-
you could just install that in your own unit if you were side by side.
Yeah, in a side by side, you'll have to get strata permission,
Yeah.
but I see them in, I do a reasonable number of analysis of row townhouses, and if it's a happy strata, usually the people just get approval on the way they go. So
Great, that's great.
I've been in both kinds of stratas.
I know what you mean.
So, what about if it's a condo, like, can you do a heat pump in a condo building?
You can. There's new systems coming out that are compact, so that you don't have to have the 2 units. And you can actually, there's units that can be mounted right through the wall that will address a reasonable amount of the space. So that's up and coming technology.
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks. I have a comment and a question. My first comment is I really appreciate the perspective of use less, and then what you use is both like resilient to our economy and resilient for the environment, and like that information is available. So like it's been really informative. My question is, in a 1950s house, which you know, Ross, what are some options to improve the envelope in leaky houses when you're not in a new build, when you're in a retrofit, and you don't maybe have the capacity to kind of pull all the walls off and do everything? So in order to reduce the energy usage, what are some of your kind of prime suggestions for older homes?
It's a case by case situation, especially on the Sunshine Coast. The fellows that do this in the city have it really easy because the houses are all Vancouver specials or whatever. So there's a lot of variables, but the lowest hanging fruit is always just improving the air tightness of the house. So that's why when I do a visit to a house, I take the time to go around with I've got these little tools, and I identify as many obvious leaks. Because often you can take about $200 to buy, there's a few different kinds of weather stripping and things to address that can actually bring that air change per hour down like 10 or 15% just for a few $100s, and right away that's the first thing to start with. But after that, every situation is a little bit different, especially older houses. They've often been added onto, so one part of the house will have these kinds of insulation properties and another. In fact, that house, the leaky house that I showed you, had 2 stages, and we're going to really focus on the older part because that's where the value is. So it takes more of an analysis, but air leaks is the best quick answer to that question.
And Ross, when you do your pressure test for a house, will you identify where the leaks are? Or?
Exactly, yeah. So there's a couple of different stages to it, and again, to keep the geekiness to a minimum, I put a big frame on a door with a fan in it, and then it's got a fancy computer, and I take a series of readings to get the official rating for the house, because holes of different shapes and sizes operate differently at different speeds of airflow, meaning little cracks can be different at a certain speed than big holes, whatever. So then, once that's all done, then I set the fan up and I let it run, and I've got this little thing that makes a little bit of smoke, and my highest tech red feather, which is highly effective, as long as my dog doesn't eat it when I get home. And I go around and I identify where the leaks are, and I take pictures with a bit of context, and I put all those in a PDF document and send that to a client so that they can then go around and address those issues, and we talk about some of the ways that can be done. So.
Thank you. David, did you have a question?
Yeah, for Liam, so Bill McKibben talks about these solar panels that you can hang on your balcony, like apartment dwellers or something, and then just plug them in and it provides electricity. And I'm sort of thinking, that must require some adjustments to the electrical system in a house. Like, that wouldn't work here, would it?
So the great thing about solar panels is once it's, solar panels, there's two kinds of electricity. There's direct current and then there's alternating current. So alternating current is what we use for our houses and the grid. Direct current is what a solar panel produces. So we have to change the direct current to alternating current. So the ones that plug in will be both a solar panel and some sort of inverter built in to go from DC to AC. Once you do that, the electricity then just follows the path of least resistance. So the reason they're able to just plug it into their wall is instead of another device where it would usually, where you plug something in and it draws power out, you're sending power back, and then it'll feed the other plugs and other lights and things in your house. So if you want to be able to offset a little bit, there's bit that would help for apartments. There's a couple of things. One is, are the products actually approved for use in Canada, which you definitely would want to look at before plugging them into your wall. The other thing is, at a certain point, if you just have one plugged in, that's probably just going to be enough to power your house, but you wouldn't want to put too many in without having some sort of making sure that BC Hydro knows that you have this, because BC Hydro doesn't want you to just be randomly sending power back to them without you being approved for some sort of for net metering or self-generation. So for a little resiliency or just something that people can plug in at their home, that in an apartment, that kind of makes sense. But I think a better strategy in that case would be if you use a virtual net metering program and just buy solar panels at another location and get the credits on your bill. But no, you're absolutely right, that would work from an electrical perspective, that 100% would work here. I've seen a little bit of them. I don't know of any that are currently rated to be used in Canada. And like it's been with an issue with, there's been people's scooters and e-bikes and things that have, had people plug into their house in the balcony or using it, hoverboard driving around and it catches on fire. A lot of the times that's because it's just something they picked up on Amazon, so it doesn't really meet good safety standards. So before whatever products people use, I hope that it's not something they just randomly pick up off Amazon that may or may not actually meet certified requirements, that they'll actually be something that's properly tested. But no, your short answer is no, we could 100% use those here.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I've noticed that these Clean BC rebates now require certified contractors to do the work, no more do it yourself, or
June 1st.
June 1st.
June 1st, okay.
Yes.
So how's that gonna impact the industry?
So for solar installations, I'm almost done completing the process of becoming a home performance contractor certified installer for solar. It wasn't, the biggest change is, so currently I have $3 million of liability insurance, which is a lot, which is definitely more than enough for residential situations. One of the things is I'm gonna have to go up to $5 million. So I'd say the biggest negative of making everybody do this is because they're now saying, okay, everybody, no matter how many installations you do, you have to have $5 million of liability insurance. That goes into my overhead, so I'm gonna have to pass that on to the cost on to customers. Now it's gonna be spread out, so it's not gonna be insane, but it will make the prices of solar installations go up a little bit. The upside is that even though the electrical installations have to meet electrical code, especially with rebates and things like that, what a lot of people will try to do is jump in. You'll get a lot of fly-by-night companies, people that don't know what they're doing, do a bad installation and then disappear. So what Hydro's trying to do with this is say, okay, if you need to show that you have experience and have done certain training to be able to be part of this network, just hoping to bring the quality of everybody's installation up. Sort of an aside, but I know about 5 to 10 years ago in Australia, they had a really big problem with that, where they brought in these big rebates. I think it was 50-75% of the cost of solar covered, something like that. They only were around, you only had like a 1 or 2 year window, so a lot of companies jumped on, did these installations, use substandard material, bad installation, etc. Rebates disappeared, the work dried up, they were the first, and they all disappeared, and other companies have had to come in and and fix those. So I understand why Hydro's doing that and making us all go on there, although it's, Alex said, it's a little bit too bad that it's basically making it a little bit more expensive for everybody.
Are there enough contractors now? Are there enough people on the go to do that work?
But then to do like to keep up for the, yeah, I would say so.
Well, we get 3 bids.
Yeah, they can get 3 from the same guy.
There you go. Just get him on 3 different. Just get him to come 3 different times. See how busy he is. Maybe the price will change. Yeah.
Each one higher than the last.
There you go, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I don't know how many of us remember Bill McKibben's other wonderful statement that none of this solar energy has to go through the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
But Ross, I do got a technical question for you. We've got a place in town that is considering apartment building, actually the co-housing community in North Van, and they're really seriously looking finally after 10 years of thinking about it to get heat pumps, and they were considering the Innova heat pump that sounds like the one that you just mentioned, which is that instead of having a coil on the outside of the building and a coil on the inside of the building, both coils are on the inside. Is that?
I think
are there more companies that do that than Innova?
Yeah, and I don't recommend specific brands because that's part of my ethic issue with Enercan. But these kinds of units have been popular in Europe for quite a while, and they're going through certifications and coming here. And I think the heat pump always has to have a differential in temperature for 2 different fans. It's essentially like a refrigerator. A refrigerator requires or uses the ambient warmth of the house versus inside to make that difference. So you'll always have to have a difference in temperature for the refrigerant to move to and fro. The point is that if we can do it in one package and not have to run refrigerant lines down the side of a building or something, especially if it's a bigger building, then there's a huge efficiency improvement.
But they just mentioned that the Innova company had lost its sort of certification under the BC program, and that other brands were approved, but for some reason that they couldn't understand that Innova was not being covered anymore for their rebate program.
Yeah, that I can't speak to. The rebate programs generally keep a list of approved products, and sometimes the company just decides it's not worth going through the aggravation to do it, or sometimes there's a problem, so that it just doesn't meet a qualification. So I don't have details on that.
All right, folks, we're coming to the end of this session. I want to just give the panel just one quick moment to reflect on what are some of the things that you would like to see happen here or in the province or in Canada over the next little while to help accelerate this? What do you think is holding us back, and what do you think can be done to accelerate it? So who wants to start? Nobody's looking at me like they want to start. Gerry, thank you, Gerry.
It's supposed to go on?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, I was tired of sitting. I think the most important thing is to just get going. I would like to see all the SCRD buildings, all the Gibson's municipal buildings, the Seashell municipal buildings, the rec center. There's so much free area there just waiting for panels. Like our rec center's got a brand new roof. They could put 100, 200 kilowatts of panels up there, like hundreds of them. It would make a gigantic difference. You know, it would power the rink or whatever they're using for it. They use a lot of energy. It wouldn't make them self-sufficient. But all that area is just sitting there. It's not doing anything else. And if you put it on your roof, not only do you get the benefit of power savings and the financial benefit and the feel-good benefit, but it also keeps your house cooler. Our house dropped by about 5 degrees C once we put all of the solar panels on, because now the house is shaded. Like, there's just a whole bunch of benefits. So I'd like to see all the houses that have sun on them have solar on them. We do that, we've made a huge impact. And then it's easy to say, okay, now we can put in heat pumps. I don't mind my electrical bill going up anymore, let's get rid of the gas.
That was very well said, Gerry. I second that. The other thing I would add is, so many people you hear this all the time, it's, well, so if the government's not doing enough, then I'm not going to do anything because I don't make an impact. Or, oh, India's building these coal-fired power plants still, so why bother put solar on? Because in the big picture of things, it doesn't make any difference. But at the end of the day, that's not the right attitude to have. The right attitude to have is, what can you, with what you have, make a difference with today? I mean, maybe, and even just small things. And if you're not able to do solar because of how your roof is too old or where you live, maybe what you could do is, hey, my car's getting towards the end of its life. Instead of just going out and buying another gas car, having a serious look about going electric. Or we are currently the number 2 for solar power installations in British Columbia in terms of the amount of solar per resident. We're right behind Salt Spring Island, so let's bump them off and make us number 1 here. Also, I have 35 solar panels on my house, and they've been there for quite a while, and every time I see them, it's just like, oh, how cool is that? Just looking up there, thinking of the free electricity that I'm generating from the sun, and it always puts a smile on my face. And then the other thing would be if we'd be getting BC Hydro to adopt some of the new technologies that are coming up to help with battery installations. But yeah, make a change that you can today, and let's bump Salt Spring Island. That's what I have to say.
Well, I think I should have gone first. So I'll just say small acts that we can all make give us hope, and we all need hope right now at this time. And I think that's Bill's message, and just happy to be here.
Well, thank you so much to our panel for your time and preparing for this session. Thank you to the community for coming out and your interest in taking action on climate. I know that it's been very gratifying for me to start into the solar panel and electric vehicle route, and a lot of people were when I was considering doing it, they were saying, yeah, but if you wait 2 years, the panels will be even producing more electricity. And I installed them, and I don't care, because my electricity bill is 0. I don't care, I don't need to produce more than 0. It's like I don't pay electricity for the rest of my life. Now we've got a solar powered car, and I've got a solar powered bike. We have a solar powered stage where we host concerts in our yard, and our clients, our B&B guests, take pictures with the solar panels and show their friends that they're so the whole wait and see. I mean, I think we have now, as Bill said, passed the point where it's no longer a question. When it makes financial sense, it has taken off at a speed that is more than anybody ever projected it to take off. So Greenpeace was making these, they thought, ridiculous projections of the potential for solar panel and growth. We're well above them. So it's gotten to the point where it's no longer the super environmentalists that are doing it for a good cause. It just is cheaper. And so I sort of take a page out of your book. I don't know what's stopping people from using their roofs now, because the payback is ridiculous compared to anything else that you would do on your house. So thank you for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of the Climate Fair. At 6 o'clock downstairs, we've got our keynote speaker and another panel on reducing emissions. The atrium is open for cocktails and food items until then. So either come back at 6 o'clock or stick around. And thanks again for being here.
Thanks for your organizing this and volunteering and all the effort. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure, yeah.
And inviting us, yes, absolutely.
Well, couldn't have done it with everything.
No, I